There's 300 very angry San Diegoites.
San Diegoans. San Diegoans.
San Diegans.
San Diegans.
San Diegans out in front of the station. They want Ron's blood.
They want to hurt you, Ron.
Ron, why did you say that? Why? Why, Ron? Why? You're my hero, Ron.
Garth,
You come out with stink like that. Poop. Poop mouth. Poop out of your mouth.
Garth, if I were to give you some money out of my wallet, would that ease the pain?
I hate you, Ron Burgundy. I hate you.
Yep, that's how I felt all weekend. I felt like Ron Burgundy telling the entire city of San Diego to go fuck themselves. Pretty much because I had some really poop mouth takes this weekend, including Michigan State, including the Detroit Lions, and including fantasy football as a whole. It was pretty bad. Pretty bad weekend for me. Took a lot of L's, but that's the nature of the beast. That's how it's going to go. What is up, guys? We are here today just giving you a little quick recap on the Week 8 of the NFL and Week 8 of fantasy football. We are in the second half of the season, people. We are in the closing weeks of the fantasy football season, which is usually 13 regular season weeks for most leagues. Week 14, 15, 16 playoffs. At least how I think it should be. So, yeah. Interesting week for sure. Took a lot of L's, especially in my leagues, and some of my predictions. So we're going to dive into those. We're going to go into the best performers at each position here and give you guys a rundown on how the week looked and what to expect, in the upcoming weeks. Playoffs are coming, folks, and it's an important time. So we're going to start with quarterbacks here. Pat Mahomes coming out on top of that list, 412 yards and 5 TDs. Phenomenal performance from Pat Mahomes against the shitty-ass Jets. We expected it, but, he performed. He did what he needed to do. I honestly thought the running game was going to have a feast, but it was definitely him, and literally all him. So shout out to Pat Mahomes for coming in at number 1 on that list. Number 2, Russell Wilson. Another really good day. 261 yards, 4 TDs. Looked really good. It's a consistent thing with this guy. He's phenomenal. He's a phenomenal talent. Top 10 potentially ever. Aaron Rodgers coming in at that 3 spot with 291 and 3 TDs. Followed by Matthew Stafford, who had a big fantasy week at number 4. 336, 3 TDs. Did have 2 TOs, but still. 3 TDs is pretty big with 336. Usually get that bonus. Had about 30 in most leagues. Coming in at number 4, Justin Herbert, 278 and 3 TDs, 21 on the ground. Followed by Phillip Rivers at that 6th spot, 262 with 3 TDs. Drew Brees coming in at that 7th spot with 280 and 2 TDs. Followed by in the number 8 spot, Joe Burrow with 249, 2 TDs. Ryan Tannehill in that 9th spot, 233, 2 TDs. Nick Foles coming in at that number, I believe, 10th spot with 270, 2 TDs. Drew Lock also 250 and 3 TDs. Big week. Lamar Jackson at 208, 65 on the ground, 2 TDs, but 4 turnovers coming in very costly. And yeah, that wraps up the quarterbacks. I messed up there a little bit. I had Drew Lock a little bit lower than I should have. He should have been around 8 to 9. He had a pretty solid week fantasy perspective. And they got a win. He played phenomenal in that second half. He looked bad in the first half, played phenomenal in the second half. So Drew Lock, not worth picking up in any leagues, but definitely it's a good sign. If you're a Drew Lock fan, if you're a Denver fan, looked pretty good. So honestly, from a quarterback perspective, the only thing I got out of this week was keep starting Justin Herbert. Keep starting Drew Brees. Keep starting Joe Burrow. Don't lose faith on Tannehill and Lamar. Definitely keep an eye on, man. Who the fuck knows what Lamar's going to do on a week-to-week basis at this point. He's definitely, last year's production was a fluke. That's pretty obvious. I still love Lamar Jackson, but never probably going to win an MVP again, more than likely. And, he's not going to put up those insane numbers that he did last year. So that's my takeaway from the quarterbacks, guys. Running backs, Dalvin Cook, 163 yards on the ground with 3 rushing touchdowns, 2 catches, 63 yards, and another TD to add to that. 4 TDs on the day, 266 all-scrimmage yards, or all-purpose yards. What a day. And 50 points in most leagues. He was great. He was, coming off a groin injury. Thought he was going to be a little bit slower. Thought Madison would probably get a little bit more of about a 30 to 40% workload. But, he barely even got the ball. Dalvin Cook just carried that offense to a victory against the Green Bay Packers. Big game for Dalvin Cook. So, Alvin Kamara coming into that 2 spot. Kamara had 67 rushing yards, 9 catches for 96 yards. In PPR format, big week. Close to 30 points. And, that's what you expect from Kamara at this point. He's a receiving machine. Can't talk. And he's a phenomenal player. So he came into that 2 spot, and he's going to stay in that top 3 pretty much every week. Gio Bernard coming in at that 3 spot with 62 rushing yards with 2 TDs, 16 receiving yards. Great day for Gio. Keeps filling in for Mixon. Definitely a must start until Mixon comes back. And there seems to be no rush with that at this point because there's no reason to. Coming in at that number 4 spot, we got Zach Moss, who had 81 yards and 2 touchdowns. Great day for him. Definitely worth a flex option in most leagues now if he's going to continue to get the rock as much as he does, especially in goal line situations. Can also catch the ball a little bit, and Josh Allen's playing like shit. So let's keep that into consideration. They're probably going to start running a lot more because Josh Allen is taking a shit. Derrick Henry coming in at that number 5 spot. He had 112 and a TD for the Tennessee Titans and a loss. Josh Jacobs had 128 on the ground. He looked good. Didn't have a touchdown, but had 31 carries. And he's definitely their workhorse, man. I mean, he's top 5 back in the league as well. Surprising one at that number 7 spot. We got J.K. Dobbins with 113 on the ground yesterday. Bye-bye Mark Ingram. Honestly, J.K. Dobbins definitely your future guy for Baltimore. Gus Edwards had a good day with 87 and a TD coming at that 9 spot. At number 8, we got Damian Harris with 102 and a TD. Surprising day for him as well. So 7 through 9 really surprising this week. Guys that we didn't expect to have that type of production, and they really they showed out. They balled out, man, and they earned those top 10 spots. Wrapping up the top 10, Todd Gurley with an average as hell performance, but 46 and a TD will get you in that top 10 some weeks for running backs. There's not that many. So, big week for him. Receivers. We got DK at number 1 with 12 catches, 146 yards, 2 TDs. Huge game. Huge stuff for Seattle. They continue to roll. They honestly should be undefeated, but their defense is so fucking bad. Devontae Adams coming in at that 2 spot with 7 for 53, 3 TDs. Kind of a weird stat line for him, but 3 TDs. I mean, doesn't matter if you got 3 catches for 10 yards and 3 TDs. That's a hell of a week. So, phenomenal game for Devontae. Corey Davis coming in at that 3 spot. Another shocker. 8 catches, 128 yards, and a TD. Great production from a guy that everybody considers a number 2 and also hasn't played much. So, big things to come for Corey Davis. At that number 4 spot, Robert Woods had a big day. 7 catches, 85 yards, a TD through the air, and a TD on the ground. Big day for him, fantasy-wise. Bad day for the LA Rams, and a 28-17 loss. Really, really disappointing for them. So, yeah. Julio Jones at that 5 spot was 7 for 137. He continues to prove that he is a top 5 receiver in the league and a top 5 receiver of our generation. Of his generation. He's phenomenal talent, man, even at 31 years old. Just an absolute monster of a receiver. Coming in at that 6 spot, Tyreek Hill, 4 catches, 98 yards, 2 TDs. Big fantasy day for him. Big fantasy day for most Chiefs, besides the running backs. Number 7, we got Brandon Ayuk with 8 for 91 and a TD, followed by Marvin Jones with 3 for 39, 2 TDs. Cooper Kupp, 11 for 110. Allen Robinson and Fulgham with similar stat lines here. I believe both had about 8 for 70 and a TD. And some good production from receivers this week. Quite a few, actually. Tight ends, really, really low-key week. We always round it out with Travis Kelce at the 1 spot here. 8 for 109 on a TD. Big week for Travis Kelce. Jared Cook coming at that 2 spot. 5 for 50 on a TD. Robert Tonyan coming in at that 3 spot. 5 for 79. Hawkinson, 7 for 65. Noah Fant, 7 for 47. And Hayden Hurst, 5 for 54. Really low-key week for tight ends. Darren Waller didn't do much. George Kittle got hurt. Those are usually the guys that you expect to have a lot. And we still have a game tonight. Gronk, he could have a big game. Guys that could have been on that top 10 list. Mike Evans, Brady, Ronald Jones, Leonard Fournette. We'll see what happens here. I don't think anybody on New York can really do anything. I hope Evan Ingram does, but probably not. So, that rounds it out for the recap, guys. I mean, like I said, we had a weird week. Really weird week and a bad week for the Detroit Lions. Some key injuries this week. Like I said, Jonathan Taylor apparently has an ankle issue, so that's a big injury for a lot of owners. Kareem Hunt really didn't do that much, honestly, and that's just the result of Cleveland not doing much in general. They just did. It was just bad, honestly, just really bad. And just guys to look forward to. I mean, Zach Moss, man. I mean, that's a guy we really got to keep an eye on because Singletary. He had a good week, but will he? I think Zach Moss is kind of taking over that backfield. So Corey Davis, another huge sleeper. Keep an eye on him. Moving forward. Mecole Hardman's going to be matchup based for Kansas City. Gus Edwards, same thing. Damian Harris, same thing. And the quarterbacks that I mentioned, Joe Burrow, Ryan Tannehill, even Phil Rivers, like those guys are matchup based. They're not must starts, they're matchup based. And it's going to be pretty crucial as my cat sits here and meows and begs for food because she's fucking fat. You're going to be alright, okay? Shut the fuck up. You're fine. I'll feed you in a minute. But anyways, once again, I appreciate you guys tuning in. I'm going to be coming at you with more content for the week. Just some predictions for Week 9, some NFL predictions, and we're going to have an NBA podcast out at some point in the week too. Just overlooking free agency, overlooking some trade options here, and what to expect for the upcoming NBA season. And once again, I thank you guys for tuning in. I love doing this shit, man. This is so exciting for me. And I'm really looking forward to getting you guys more content. So once again, thank you for tuning in, and everybody have a great week. Take care.